What's happening, everybody? And thanks for tuning in to the Crash Bang Boom podcast. Today's guest is Robby Staebler of All Them Witches. Robby talks about his split time between Los Angeles and Nashville. We take a little behind-the-scenes tour of the making of some of the records, why Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd are still big influences, as well as new releases from his band UVWAYS. Be on the lookout for All Them Witches tour dates coming up starting October 20th of this year at Intuition Ale Works, Jacksonville, Florida. So I hope y'all dig it. Today's episode is sponsored by OneUpLoops.com. Carson Gant and his team spent an incredible amount of time recording over 450,000 shaker, tambourine, and hi-hat loops at every possible tempo and multiple feels with incredible mics and outboard gear for you to pick and choose. It's organized for you to find exactly what you need with just a few clicks, and everything feels and sounds incredible. You can sign up for free to check it out and gain full access to all said 450,000 loops starting at just $5.99 a month. No download limits, whatever you want, whenever you want. New loops, one-shots, and drum breaks are being added weekly. Definitely a great addition to the arsenal of any drummer and or producer, so check it out, and that's OneUpLoops.com. Crash Bang Boom podcast can be found on iTunes, Spotify, Luminary, Stitcher, hell, you name it, on all streaming platforms and podcast platforms. Feel free to check out any of the previous 260-plus episodes and give me a like, a subscription, and or a positive review, as it would be appreciated. All right, let's get into it. Robby Staebler, UVWAYS, All Them Witches, Crash Bang Boom.
Crowds go mad with joy.
Yes! All right, I'm here with Robby Staebler of the one and only All Them Witches. Robby, what's happening, man? How you doing?
I'm good, dude. Not much, just hanging out, trying to stay busy. And yeah, I guess we were supposed to link a long time ago. The other day I was looking for a specific email, and then I see this unopened email from you from like 18 months ago. And I was like, oh yeah, let's do that. So I'm glad we are getting to do it.
Oh my God, man. You know, when I think about the band at the very least, I think of Nashville, but where are you located now?
I'm in Los Angeles, but I split my time between here and Nashville. I just kind of can't get away from either place. So doing both worlds right now.
Right on. Do you have studios in both Los Angeles and Nashville?
I set up a studio here in Los Angeles recently. I had a studio outside of Nashville for a while, but the guy sold the building recently. So I'm still trying to find a bigger place that can hold all of my stuff. So still trying to figure it out, but I do have a pretty awesome studio set up.
Nice. So then at that point you had to, I'm assuming, get all of the gear that was in the Nashville studio out to LA and build that all out. That was a whole process.
I have an awesome room out here. It sounds unbelievable. So I didn't have to do any building. I just had to do a lot of driving and plug in a lot of cables.
Gotcha. So you have board, hardware, software, mics, drums, and it's like, is it a pretty good size room?
All of it. Yeah. I mean, the room's small, but it's big enough. It's probably 500 square feet.
Gotcha.
My last place was 1,500, so I had a little more room. Mm-hmm. But this is like the condensed version, and it sounds super good. But yeah, I'm using analog gear, a mixture of digital and analog, but you know, I've got a pretty sweet console from the 70s, a bunch of outboard gear, and some really awesome mics and drums, synths, all that stuff. So I'm occupied.
I believe it. That sounds awesome, man. Is it just one big room basically that the Los Angeles studio is?
Yeah, it's one room. It's got short ceilings, all concrete on bedrock on top of a mountain. So
damn.
It's just, and the ceilings are low, but like old hardwood rafters, and it just sounds great. And we did an album in Abbey Road and in Studio 2, which is like the most famous room there. But I swear this room sounds better with the drums. I mean, it's crazy.
Wow. With like the smaller room and the short ceilings, does it complicate like getting room sounds for the drums, or can you get enough distance and just there's enough natural reverberation and everything going on in the room to where even the room mics are sounding pretty killer?
I was talking to a guy who builds studios the other day, and he was like, it's either one of two things. You either spend all this time and money and do all these measurements to get the room sounding good, or you just get lucky And it's usually the rooms where you get lucky that sound better. And it's just a matter of luck. I don't use a lot of mics on the drums.
Mm-hmm.
The room sound is the main sound.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, I think that I feel like that's always been kind of your drum sound. And there's always just kind of a general sort of roomy, reverberating sort of vibe within the production of the band over all the records. Some maybe a little more drier than others, but I feel like for sure, drum-wise, that's kind of been your deal, I feel like, within the band.
I've never been a huge fan of dampening or like putting pillows and blankets and kick drums, any of that stuff. I feel like if you tune it right, drums are supposed to ring. And I like that. And, we've experimented with some things over the years. And I haven't been happy with every sound I've gotten on records and stuff, but who has?
Sure.
But, it's a constant process, and I'm trying to get closer to that. And I think I'm pretty much nailing it right now.
Nice. Hell yeah. I guess if you went from Nashville to LA and then with the 2 studios, where were you prior to that? / I guess, where did you sort of grow up?
Well, I was born in Kentucky, grew up in Ohio, and then I've shot around the place. But I did a short stint in Oregon in 2011 before it was turned to human shit on the sidewalks everywhere.
Right.
It was awesome when I was out there. And then I've been in Nashville, and then I went back to Ohio for a second, back to Nashville. So I've been moving around a lot, but
Gotcha.
I consider Tennessee the home base.
I hear you. Where in Kentucky were you born? I was born in New Orleans, but my mother and father divorced when I was really young, so I would spend summers in Kentucky. I think in like LaGrange, sort of outside of Louisville, like way like out in the country. When I look at those pictures, it's like this little farmhouse out on like rolling hills of Kentucky. I got to like go back to that area and see if it at all even looks like that anymore. Who knows? But what area of Kentucky for you?
I was in Ashland, Kentucky, but I was real small, so I don't remember it. But
Gotcha.
My parents were having a great time. Apparently, we lived one holler over from Loretta Lynn, so that's kind of cool.
Nice. Well, why Nashville from Portland then?
I was kind of I moved to Portland to start a band. I had made this weird, I don't even know if you want to call it an album, but I had a bunch of songs that they're not even songs, just weird jams that I wrote. Mm-hmm. And it was just time for me to move. I'd never been out west, and I had gotten evicted from this place I was living where I thought it was like the ultimate studio place for me to be. And it was all over a bunch of bullshit.
Right.
I pay my bills.
Yeah.
But I had to go. So I was like, well, I'm just going to try this out. I was newly single, and I had these instruments and just this music that I was working on. And I went out there, didn't really go anywhere. I just partied all of my money away.
Right.
And was like doing some super epic camping, which I'd always wanted to do.
Nice.
And somebody said that they wanted a drummer in their band, and they offered me a place to live. I was like, all right, well, that sounds like I need to do that. While I was in Portland, I acquired all of this music gear, like a whole band's worth. Uh-huh. And for a band that did not exist.
Right.
And then as soon as I got to Nashville, this guy that I was staying at his house, we'd never played music, kind of tripped out, kicked me out of his house because he was up to some weird shit, whatever. And thank God he did, because I ended up finding Ben and all of that. The whole story of ATW starts there after I was living in my car for a little bit trying to figure it out.
Oh, damn, man. I always dug, like, in addition, just in myself and being a sort of stoner psychedelic fan of music, what I call proto-stoner, like the early 70s stuff and all of that. What I like about your band is like the slide guitar stuff, which I've always said is like my spirit animal. If there was ever like a sound, that was somehow my spirit animal. I don't know if it's something about being Southern and hearing Southern rock and blues growing up and something about that, but I always dug that about your band. I guess tell me a little bit about incorporating that. Was that conscious, like let's do a sort of stoner psychedelic thing, but make it even like Southern with slide guitar or blues, or how did that go down?
Well, it's funny you say that, because right after I found my first place in Nashville, I didn't know anybody. I was just by myself. There's a bar down the street, and I went and checked out this bar, and Ben was playing slide guitar for some singer-songwriter guy.
Oh, damn.
And I was just like, damn, that guy's really good guitar player. So I asked him, hey, man, you want to hang out and let's like jam or something? And he did. So it actually started by me seeing Ben play slide guitar, and I was always super into that. Love the Allman Brothers.
Yeah.
Floyd.
Yeah.
So I was into that kind of vibe, and he had it, and I was like, damn, this guy can really play. So it just turned into that with really no effort. That's how it was.
That's cool, man. As far as some of the records, just kind of touch on some of them throughout the years and talk a little bit about the process recording them and or sort of where you were at and, some of the producers that you worked with, starting with Dying Surfer Meets His Maker. I was reading that y'all did that out in the country, like in a cabin or something like that. It's funny because now I'm out on like 12 acres out in Georgia, sort of south of Atlanta, out on this kind of farm area. So yeah, needless to say, no noise complaints are being leveraged this way. I could literally ride my lawnmower and shoot guns while I'm doing it, and I don't know that anyone would really think anything of it.
Oh yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm looking for land myself. That's always been my goal, is to have a bunch of land and kind of get away from it all.
Nice.
And especially these days, dude, I think you're in a good spot. But yeah, so we did that record, Pigeon Forge. Sort of, I mean, it's in the country, but there's civilization up there. And we really just got lucky with that because that wasn't very well thought out. They're basically just like vacation rentals up in the hills.
Wow.
And we didn't even consider seeing if there were going to be other people around.
Right.
And there weren't. Like we drove a whole studio up there, took all the pictures off the walls, rearranged everything, set up, and just basically made that record up on the spot, minus like the actual songs. That part's demoed as like 3 songs.
Wow.
But yeah, we got lucky. We did it out on the cabin, and luckily nobody was around, because if they were, that shit would have got shut down for sure.
Absolutely. Did y'all bring like an engineer, or did y'all pretty much just kind of produce it, engineer it, and everything sort of on the spot as y'all were recording it?
We brought our friend Mikey Allred. That was the first time we worked with him.
Nice.
And we brought him back for some other things in the future. He mastered the Baker's Dozen stuff,
cool,
the digitals for that. But yeah, we had him engineer it. We really wasn't produced. We were pretty much just making it up and doing it ourselves. So
nice. For Sleeping Through the War, the next full length, y'all worked with Dave Cobb, who's produced, a personal favorite of mine, a Chris Stapleton, and many other ones, all the way out to like Wheeler Walker Jr. to Rival Sons and kind of all over the place. But that Chris Stapleton record in particular, I have on vinyl. I listen to it all the time and I love it. That's super cool that y'all worked with him. I guess tell me a little bit about that record and working with him.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Dave's a good guy. I talked to him. Love to work with him again. So we went in with that. We had never worked with a producer. That's the only time we actually ever have. But we really went in and had the whole album pretty much mapped out. Mm-hmm. So it was a very chill experience. He made some suggestions. We made a couple changes to some things, but he really just let us do our thing, and it was real easy. So that's the one and only time we've worked with a producer. And I'm sure we will again.
Right.
But can't get into any of that yet.
Yeah, I hear you. That sounds cool. That I've never really worked with producers so much as more so engineer, so to speak, and then mixing and mastering, et cetera. But as far as going to the studio and recording it, there hadn't been very much input from a quote unquote producer. But it sounds like with Dave, y'all were pretty prepared going into it, and he was minimally invasive as well in a sense. So that sounds pretty awesome to just work with that kind of environment with a relatively big producer at that.
Yeah, and I'd like to go in unprepared. And see what would happen then.
Right.
I think my favorite things that we've done as a band are more or less unprepared and just kind of just made up.
Right.
In a live environment. And we're really a live band. So it's been a little hard to capture that on albums. So that's why when we do our next record, I really want to go in there and not have complete ideas.
Yeah, absolutely, man. As far as Nothing Is the Ideal, you had mentioned Abbey Road and recording there. I guess tell me a little bit about going there, and I mean, did y'all ship equipment over there, or how did that work? And then once you got there, what did you think about just being there?
We thought it was going to be like Disneyland. We weren't sure. They do tours and stuff like that, but we didn't really know what to expect. We brought some amp heads with us. Definitely brought all the guitars, pedal boards. I brought a snare drum, which looking back, I probably should have brought a different snare drum, and cymbals. Mm-hmm. And then we rent like all the cabs and the drum set. And then we brought our friend Mikey Allred. He came out. He was the engineer on that. And then they also gave us a house engineer to, kind of show them where things are and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure.
He needed some help with things. He had an assistant. Mm-hmm. But it was a great experience, man. It was weird walking in there, and you're just kind of hit with it all at once. And there's pictures everywhere. So you're standing in a spot where you see a picture of like David Gilmour sitting, and it's like, all right, this is awesome, dude. And
wow,
it all hit us at once. Like, this is really cool. We're in the cafe, like where you see Pink Floyd eating their dinner and stuff like that in the Dark Side documentary.
Yeah.
We're like right there. It's like, this is badass, dude.
Oh man, that's trippy. Yeah, Dark Side of the Moon is one of those records where just when it opens up, when I throw it on, every time, regardless of how either stoned or sober I am, I always feel like I'm levitating a little bit in space. That record is just absolutely magical. Jesus.
It is. It's a masterpiece, man. It doesn't really get much better than that.
Totally. As far as your setup over the years, be it changing with drum brand, dimension, cymbals, etc., have you stuck to the primary things that maybe you started off with, or has that evolved over the years?
It's all been pretty similar. I started with a 59 Rogers kit. That was a 2013-16. That was the first 2 records. And then I had a brass snare made by this company, World Max, that I gave away to someone years later, which was a great sounding drum. I still wish I had it, but yeah, I was feeling generous in the moment. But that kit, really awesome sounding kit. I still use it. The floor tom, I bring the floor tom on tour with me to this day.
Really?
Yeah, definitely. It just sounds too good. I can't get away from it.
Wow.
I transitioned from that to wanting a bigger kick drum, because when you start out as a band, like, you don't have a sound guy, you're playing really shitty sounding rooms with those loud guitars and loud basses. It was just really hard for me to hear my 20-inch kick drum. So I moved up to a 28 and then scaled it back from a 28 to a 26 to a 24.
Right.
And I've been using the 24 for, man, I think 2015, I got that kit for Dying Surfer, and I've been using that same kick drum that's on that record for all my tours in the States since 2015. And wow. I still have it. Yeah. And I still use it on tour. So now I'm using a 24x10 on tour. I'm using the 59 Rogers for the floor tom, mm-hmm. or a 70s fiberglass pearl that I've been bringing out. If we're touring and it's freezing outside, uh-huh. I'll bring the fiberglass so that the wood's not getting stressed out.
Right. Interesting. And
then I have a 70s it's a 70s Slingerland 12-inch rack tom that I've been using. So it's a hybrid. Totally. I like that because it all looks different. They're all, road rashed up, and they're in different ways. And I love the Frankenstein vibe. I'm thinking about getting a new kit right now just because I feel like it's time to get something new. It'll be fun and exciting. I do want a 13-inch rack tom instead of a 12.
Right.
And I want a 26x13 kick.
Uh-huh.
I still have that room to make the drum bigger without adjusting the position of my rack tom. So
gotcha.
I just want a little more thickness, just something a little different. I just like changing things up, and it's been years since I really have. So
Right. I hear you on the 24. I only have one 24-inch bass drum, but I've got 4 full kits, but all of them are at 14-inch depths, whether it's the 80s Tama Superstar or an 80s Yamaha, or maybe early 90s. And then I've got a spun fiberglass kit, and this Sonar kit that's like a jazzier kit, which I love. As far as just sitting down with a kit that just acoustically sounds great to ear and it records great, there's something about that. And that's like a 20-inch, 20-inch bass drum, 10, 12, 14. So jazz sort of dimensions, but God, it just sounds, if I put like a real crack and snare with it, like one of my old Acrolytes, it sounds a lot like Clyde Stubblefield, sort of John Starks, James Brown drums.
yeah, that's awesome.
It sounds really close to that. And then when I sit down, then I'm like, well, shit, I guess I'm playing James Brown beats and like meters beats and stuff. It just makes you play like that. So that's the really fun thing. If you have the luxury of the space and the equipment to put in the space, switching it out is fun and can be pretty inspiring, man. I'm a fan of it.
Yeah, I love that, especially in the studio. I've been experimenting with a bunch of different drums. The main drum I've been using in the studio is a 70s Ludwig. It's a 28 by 14, and
wow,
has the original heads on it.
Damn.
I don't even tune it.
Really?
I drove it from. The drive to get out here earlier this summer was I drove from Florida to Nashville to get some more stuff, and then Nashville to here.
Oh man.
And it's hot as hell outside.
Yep.
That thing's bumping around in the back of the trailer on a seat with no case or anything. I don't even tune it. I just put it in the studio, original heads, and it sounds insane.
Wow.
So that's what I've been using in the studio right now. But I do love the small kits like that and the real funky sounds. I'm doing some studio tricks to get it to sound like that.
Right.
But I can't divulge how I'm doing it, because if I told you, you wouldn't believe me anyways. But
I bet I'd be using it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm also I'd have to figure out the plug-in version. I'm pretty much straight into interfaces and then just trying to compensate from there via plugins. And I just figure, if the drums are good, if the player's pretty solid, if the room sounds pretty good, the gear is good, and the mics are good, that's a large part of the battle. I just haven't invested in the hardware side of it, but that is something that at some point I do need to do.
Yeah, you can definitely do it with plugins, and I've done it, but I've been getting into the actual hardware, and
right.
I like turning knobs, man.
Me
I
too.
like seeing things light up, and that's fun. That's a lot of fun for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've got 4 stereos in here. I set this house up like I'm autistic. I've got 4 separate analog stereos, and then one of them has a VHS station next to it, so you can throw VHS tapes in, and then an additional head that's just to connect via auxiliary, and then a tape deck with cassette tapes. So it's this little dedicated analog station that's upstairs, and then a few other stereos spread out around the house. So yeah, you're preaching to the choir on the knob turning. I'm a fan.
I think we would get along, man. I do the same thing when I had my church studio. It was stations of, here's my vinyl station,
right?
Here's my Spotify station, here's my cassette tape recording station.
Totally.
All the different stations. I love it.
You said a church studio? Did you had a church, a studio literally in an old church at some point?
Yeah, it was 1959. It matched my drum kit. It was an old Baptist church out in the country.
Wow.
Just a one room that they separated into there was a shower and some separate rooms in the back and a couple bathrooms.
Wow.
But yeah, it was an old church, man. And it was one of those things where I got lucky. It sounded good. It wasn't perfect because I had a huge basement. So I was losing a bunch of low end in there. But it still sounded really good. The room sounds incredible.
Wow. It sounds like you've lucked out more than once from what I'm hearing here with these studios, man.
Yeah, I've had a few really great spots that worked out. So I'm fingers crossed that I get lucky again.
I hear you, man. I had mentioned earlier, like some of that late sort of 70s, what I call proto stoner, whether it's like the first Rush record before Neil Peart, or like Wishbone Ash, the first record, or Lucifer's Friend, or some of that. Just sort of, I mean, I call it proto stoner, even though, Black Sabbath had put some stuff out in 70. So there was certainly things happening in the wake of that. But are there any bands in particular, like early 70s kind of heavier bands from wherever, Germany, the States, England, etc., that you've been a fan of throughout the years?
Yeah, definitely. I got into, the first bands that I really got into were Led Zeppelin.
Yep.
And Pink Floyd. And that was and then Pink Floyd was kind of like, this is it for a while. And then I got into Miles Davis, Sun Ra. But then like the heavier stuff, I found this band, like my first year of college, my friend's dad told me about this French band. I think they're French, called Heldon.
What is it?
Heldon. It was just like this psychotic, heavy prog rock. And I haven't listened to it for so long that I don't even know if I'm describing it right.
Yeah.
But it was mental. And I remember that was the first time I sat down and listened to a vinyl record, start to finish, just sitting in a chair. And it was somebody wearing a flight gas mask or something.
Bizarre.
Like the Black Sabbath one,
right,
on the cover.
Uh-huh.
I could be getting that wrong, but the band Heldon, I got into for a second, and that was like, holy shit, that segued me into Tangerine Dream.
Uh-huh.
And then I couldn't get away from that, because that's like about the time I smoked weed for the first time.
Right.
And that was when weed didn't give you wasn't LSD. I can't do it anymore.
Right. Immediate anxiety fits.
Yeah. I don't need to see colors and, feel like I'm dying. It's like, right. I missed the old shitty weed when I was first listening to discovering music. But then the first Black Sabbath album, I remember listening to that for the first time, and I just couldn't believe that.
Oh,
I got hooked on that for a while.
Yeah.
It was tons of stuff.
Yeah, man. Some of the early video of Black Sabbath off those first few records, man, with Bill Ward's drumming. God, he was such a savage and so killer, and like had the swing of like and the bombast of Bonham, but had his own thing going on. Oh man, I'm such a fan of Bill Ward's playing, especially on those first few records, man. God.
Oh, me too, absolutely. And his drum tone was really cool too.
Yeah.
I was super into that. I learned one fill from Bill Ward that I do like constantly.
Okay.
I don't even know how to describe it. I don't know much about music, or like can't read music or anything like that. I'm not even going to try to describe this fill, but there's one that I got from him that I use all the time.
Crazy. Yeah, I don't doubt it. There's definitely, I call it the sort of unshakable influence throughout time. And I definitely have those, especially in the formative years, if you're getting into stuff. A lot of that stuff just unconsciously can stick with you, and it permeates throughout time. But it's embedded in you, unless you make a conscious effort to figure out what it is and root it out of your own playing. I would say most people are acting unconsciously from a few of those early influences, for sure, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's cool, man, because it's evolution. I dig it.
Yeah, no doubt. I didn't even ask you, but what age did you start playing, and sort of what led you to the instrument in the first place?
Started when I was 15. My parents will say I started when I was inside of my mom's stomach.
Right.
Beating the shit out of her gut.
Right.
Sounds crazy, but I remember being a kid, like my dad played drums in church, and we get out of church and we start blasting the Judds in the car or something like that. And I was just playing drums on the back of my parents' headrest.
Right.
And that was kind of where it started for me. And when I was 15, I remember my dad bought a drum set from my buddy's dad, and it was an 80s Tama. Maybe it was a Rockstar, but I don't know what the other one was.
They had the Superstars. They had Swing Star, and maybe the Rockstar. That for sure they had 80s Swing Stars and Superstars.
I think it was a Superstar. And
nice.
And he had an acoustic Ovation with like the fiberglass back and the EQ on it. So I was like, I'm going to play guitar. So I tried to play guitar. My brother he just took it away from me, and he was actually able to play guitar.
Right.
So I was like, all right, well, if you do that, I'll play drums. And then it just turned into me and my brother had a 2-piece band forever. But I would just sit downstairs and watch Pink Floyd or Led Zeppelin videos and just drum along to it.
Yeah.
Put my headband on and watch Live at Pompeii and just
yeah.
get into it.
That is wild. That's good. You know what, man? Maybe you'll have some insight into this. For that Live in Pompeii video of Pink Floyd, you know how instruments sound outdoors, but there is like this natural, almost room-like, really killer, warm reverb sound on that video when I watch it. And I was like, were they running it through giant plate reverbs out there? Do you know like any specifics on how they made it not sound like they were outdoors?
I don't know the specifics, but they definitely brought in all of that gear, and Pink Floyd was huge on gear. Like that was one of their things. Like they had tons of equipment, and I think people kind of criticize them for it. Maybe, I don't know, but yeah, I'm sure there was definitely some post processing going on there. Absolutely. But, you know, it's still all analog.
Right.
It was all, you know, back in the day, I would think like digital's cheating or whatever, but maybe it is a little bit.
Right.
But I don't know the specifics of what they were using. I would love to. Actually, I'm probably going to try to figure this out after we're done here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure they were running all kinds of insane stuff.
Absolutely. Well, going forward, man, are there any projects, tours, records, et cetera, that you're looking forward to unveiling and et cetera anytime soon?
Man, there's a ton of stuff happening right now, and I wish I could just put it all out at once. But ATW is working on a new record.
Cool.
We've been writing it in the infancy stages, but we're working on it. We're hoping to have that finished by the end of this year.
Nice.
ATW is about to do a short tour. We're going to Florida. I think we're doing 4 or 5 shows, and then we're going to end the year with 2 nights at the Ryman. So the first night will be, we're going to play 3 albums in the entirety: Sleeping, Dying, and Lightning.
Awesome.
And then the second night is going to be a totally different set of other songs that aren't on those albums.
Wow.
And then I have a side band called UVWAYS.
Mm-hmm.
My buddy Alad, who makes Dale amps, Parks, the bass player, uses them. He plays bass with me, and then I've got Evan Smith, the pro skater, who sings. So I put out an album 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah. All just experiments, like these cassette tape demos. And then COVID hit, and like, all right, well, what do I do with this? And then that's like the side band is kind of born out of that. So it's like all this lo-fi stuff. But since then, we've completed 2 albums that I'm sitting on. We're waiting for like the right time to release them. So I have 2 insane albums on my own with Alad and Evan that are in the can, ready to go. Awesome. Full music videos, all the stuff's ready. So people can look forward to that. I've got the 2 UVWAYS albums in the can. We just started the 4th one. I have a website, UVWAYS.com, where I sell my art. I do all the art and all the video stuff for the band, all the merch. So I do exclusive t-shirts on there, prints, random things. And then ATW is about to drop a pretty sweet physical product that should be announced in a couple of weeks. I can't say what it is, but it's badass. Nice. And I'm super excited about that. But that's about it, man.
Awesome. Well, excelente, man. Well, dude, it was good talking to you. Appreciate the time. Looking forward to hearing some of these projects reach the light of day. Yeah, man. We'll have to catch up if y'all ever come through Atlanta. I'll have to come see y'all live and see it in the flesh.
Definitely. Absolutely. We should link up, and I'm glad we finally got to do this.
Right on, man. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, man.
All right, everybody, that does it for today's episode. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks to Robby for catching up. Be on the lookout for All Them Witches tour dates coming up starting October 20th of this year at Intuition Ale Works, Jacksonville, Florida. We'll catch y'all on the next one. Keep tuning in. I'll keep trying to crank them out. Crash, bang, boom.